All right, all present and accounted for. I will start the meeting. Haley, we're good?
You're all set.
Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. It is Thursday, April 28th, I believe. This is the third public budget workshop for the town of Warren.
29th.
29th, even better. We have to approve our budget, but I think after considering the fact that there is a discrepancy still in the amount that we are contributing to education, I think it best that we make a motion to continue this until we have a definitive answer or information on the education contribution. Manager Michaud can share a screen that will explain what the discrepancy is, and possibly Councilman Kalenda, as the chair of the Joint Finance Committee, can shed a little light on what has transpired between the March 25th Joint Finance Committee vote on the education budget to now. But as far as I know, nothing else has changed in our operation or capital budget. It is just the number for education that is in question. Am I correct?
Yes, that's the primary consideration, but there may be some other amendments that are required as a result.
Correct. Pending this final number for education will determine whether we need to make cuts or move things around, and that is a greater discussion. So we can, if Manager Michaud would sort of share to the rest of the council what the number in question is and how that happened, that's good. And then we can decide, or I think it would be best that we continue this to the regularly scheduled May 11th council meeting, meet early, and figure out how we're going to plug that hole in the budget if in fact it is determined that that's what we need to do. So I will mute myself and let Manager Michaud explain.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to be as clear and keep this as simple as possible because it is a complicated issue, but I think we have a clear picture of where we are at the moment. We just need some more information before we can finalize this budget. So just for general information, there's some considerations for approval of the final budget. One of those considerations is, as the council president just mentioned, the contribution to the Bristol Warren Regional School District, and I'll explain in a second what the issue is with that. The second issue is the motor vehicle tax reimbursement. Just like it always is, that won't be final until the completion of the state's budget process. So we are doing what we've done in prior years, which we're using the governor's budget figure. So there is no issue that needs to be acted on at this point, but just the council should be aware that that is not a final number until after the state's budget process is complete. And then the third issue is the use of federal funds through the American Rescue Plan. There are two categories of aid that the town of Warren is scheduled to receive. One is municipal aid, the other is county aid, which will be divvied up amongst the municipalities within the county on a per capita basis. On the screen, you will see the estimates that have been provided to us. These are just estimates. We have not received any final word on what those totals will actually be. And the funds would be dispersed to us in two tranches, so in two equal payments, 12 months apart when we do receive them. So the Bristol Warren Regional School District funding issue breaks out as follows. At the top, you will see total local aid figure of $40,875,550. That is the total local aid number that was included in the motion by the Joint Finance Committee on March 25th. That number would break out to the two communities as depicted. Bristol would be 27,812,066. and Warren would be 13,063,484. And that 13,063,484 is the number that we have included in the budget as it stands right now. When the motion was made, Councilman Coloro from the town of Bristol added what he called a point of clarity. And in his point of clarity, he cited a dollar increase for the contributions for both Bristol and Warren. If you use the dollar increase and disregard the number in the total local aid, then Bristol's contribution would be 28,251,897, and Warren's contribution would be 13,270,075 for a total local aid of 41,521,972. So that larger number, the 28,251,897, is what Bristol has included in their approved provisional budget. So this is, it's a point that needs clarification. We are basically operating on two different bottom line numbers, the town of Warren and the town of Bristol, and it needs to be reconciled because Bristol's number as they have it in their budget and Warren's number as we have it in our budget cannot coexist. So either we have to change ours or they have to change theirs. So that's really the prime issue at hand that we will need clarification on prior to finalizing the Warren budget.
I'm confused. It seems that Bristol is contributing more money in their budget. Then what's the problem?
Well, then we would have to also contribute more money because it has to be proportional. So if they can't just decide to include more, we would also have to include more. And they have stated that they intended.
What's the total budget?
So the total budget that was cited in the motion is 55,368,520.
Okay.
If you use Bristol's contribution number of 28,251,897 and the higher number for Warren of 13,270,075, then that total budget is $56,014,942.
Who's requesting more money than the requested budget? Bristol?
Bristol, there were different numbers presented to the JFC and those numbers got mixed together basically. So the total local aid came from one category and then the contribution by town came from another category. So the two things can't go together though. So either it's 40,875,550 or it's 41,521,972. It's one or the other.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So we could be on the hook for 200 and change?
Correct.
Really?
And that, yep.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That's actually, I think, so in order to stay under the 4% tax levy cap, which is set by state law, we would actually need to cut $181,591 from our budget. There are a couple of other changes that were included in the draft budget. We've received our actual insurance costs, which are lower than what was estimated. So that's a $25,000 savings that can be applied with no effect on anything. It's a savings that will be realized because we have the actual number now. The only other minor change is the tax-based valuation has been updated, but that has no significant change to the property tax levy or the tax rate. That's just you'll notice the numbers are slightly different, but it doesn't have an effect.
So that's a pretty significant number that we might have to deal with is what I'm hearing. And so it's been a while since the Joint Finance Committee passed the budget. Seems like, when can we expect to get resolution on this, say by our next council meeting on the 11th, I think it is, May 11th?
I do think that's the plan. And, I'll leave that to Councilman Kalenda. He may want to address that. But I think everybody's clear on the issue. It's just how does it get resolved?
I'm still not clear on the issue. Where did the two numbers come from?
So
how is Bristol contributing more money than what the school committee requested?
Kate, do you want me to jump in now or do you want to? Because you're doing a great job.
Nope, go right ahead.
Okay. All right, so fellow members of the council, this discrepancy was brought to my attention a few days ago, probably about 10 days ago. Actually, today's the 28th. I don't want to lie to you. The 13th was when it was first brought to my attention. So I immediately jumped on the phone with Diane Brennan, who was the CFO consultant, and I spoke with her a total of about, oh, I don't know, I'm looking at my notes over here. Between the 13th and the 14th, I must have spoke to her about a dozen times. And then speaking with Mary Ann Carroll, I spoke to her. She's the attorney who represents the school committee. I spoke to her no less than 19 different occasions. Where we landed at was when Nathan made his motion, he commingled numbers, like Kate has explained. And what he did is he took the 40, 875, 550 number, where it should have been the 41, 521 number. And he just commingled them in his motion so that the math doesn't add up. It's not like anybody's asking for more money. The numbers just got commingled. So, I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't hear you. What was that?
It was a mathematical mistake, so the two didn't add up correctly?
Correct. So when I had, somebody brought to my attention that the math wasn't done right, I had Fung look at it. I had Diane Brennan look at it again, and I may not pronounce her name correctly, but Julie Grasso from Bristol. The math was done correctly, but the motion was done incorrectly. So after having a meeting with Carrie, Kate, and Tony and Fung today, Tony DeSisto reached out to Mike Osillo. He has not heard back from Mary Ann Carroll. So Carrie and Kate, I'm sure you were reading the emails that I was reading. Bristol is, or Mike Osillo has identified this as, and I actually had to look this term up because I wasn't familiar with it, a scrivener's mistake, which dates back to like medieval times when scribes were used to be taken, and it was an error in the script that was taken. So, but it's, I don't see it as that, but they believe, Mike Rosillo believes that I can fix this administratively. I haven't landed the X on that square yet, so I'm gonna let Tony and Rosillo and Mary Ann Carroll hash it out. But needless to say, my plan is, if I have to, is to call another JFC meeting to amend the motion on May the 5th. So if I can't fix this administratively, or if the numbers aren't agreed, then I'm going to call the meeting. And if we get a quorum, great. If we don't get a quorum, then the meeting doesn't take place. But right now, I won't sign. I'm telling my council members, and I'll tell the other members of the JFC, I will not sign that document that verifies the motion was done correctly, because it's flawed. And in my opinion, it needs to be corrected. And if I can correct it administratively, great. If I need to call another meeting and correct it and amend it, then that's what we'll do. So I don't know if that cleared anything up or just muddied it even more.
Well, it clears it up to me. If somebody made a mathematical mistake and they should have asked for 41 and they asked for 40, then I understand that. If that's what you're saying.
Well, Kate and Carrie, if I left something out, or if you have something to add, by all means, please jump in, because as Kate mentioned, it is extremely complicated how this formula is put together. It's what we have to deal with, but just when you think you have a handle on it, something else pops its head up.
Yeah, I think Councilman Kalenda explained it well. I think one of the other issues this year is that because the Bristol Warren School District does not have a financial director, a finance officer, the presentation this year was also different, which I think led to confusion. The budget presentation was not the way it has been in prior years. So I think that was part of the confusion when the motion was made. The district broke out debt service as a separate line item, which previously that was not broken out from the rest of the operational costs. So it's that debt service number that was left out of that 40,875,550. So not to further confuse it, but that the presentation was definitely part of the issue.
So, and if I may, the discussion leading up to the ultimate motion and vote was preceded by the chair from Bristol saying at the beginning of the meeting that Bristol had the intention of fully funding, which to myself, and I believe the other members of the Warren JFC, meant the 40,875,550 number. And then that number was repeated in a pretty convoluted motion that was long and full of lots of different jargon and numbers and points of clarity. So when it came time to actually vote, I think that, or I know that I believed that I was voting on a different number that ultimately was used and recorded by Bristol in their municipal budget document, and thus the situation that we're in now. So we do need to get it rectified, and Bristol is aware of this, as has been mentioned, and they believe it's just a flick of the pen. But what does Chair Kalenda write with the pen? And will Bristol agree? So that needs to be established once and for all. So if it can be done without calling the JFC, that's fine. As I won't say as long as it comes out in our favor, but if it doesn't reflect the number that we've been using, we will have to cut 181,591 from our budget, which is pretty unpleasant thing to have to do. And it is not a situation that I would have supported putting us in had the motion been better stated at the time. So we can entertain a motion to continue this vote.
I'll make a motion. We continue this final passage of the budget to the regular May 11th.
Yes.
May 11th council meeting at 6 p.m.
Yes.
Can you go 6:30? Can you go 6:30 instead? Is that enough time?
Do you have some conflict? Just if in fact we do have, if it is discovered that we are on the hook for this 181,591, that
Actually,
might get protracted discussion.
Yeah, you know, I get it. I have to return my wife. I'm dropping her off on the 5th and I'm picking her up on the 11th. But since it's a Zoom meeting, you may see me in the car. That's all. That's fine.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So let's, I mean, if in fact it is, it happens that the numbers are rectified before that time to the number that we have plugged in, we don't need to start the meeting early. We can start it as regularly intended at 7 p.m. And hopefully that information will be apparent before the deadline for issuing the agenda or advertising the agenda.
Can I ask another question here? I am still very confused because I don't understand how even a long, convoluted motion, was that number that evening wrong?
It was right and it was wrong. He used some of the correct, he used some of the correct numbers and then he threw in some other numbers. And you can review the tape yourself. That is public document, and I'm sure Chairman Kalenda would be happy to share with you those 2 minutes and however many seconds specifically. Had you been there or had you been viewing the Zoom, it probably wouldn't have raised a big red flag for you. It's
Carrie,
C.
That's where I'm so confused, because if the number was supposed to be 41 and they said 40 and nobody realized that, I don't understand how the math could work.
Now, Joe, it's when Nate added in for the note of clarity, and he added in the 396, 177 and the 850, 662. When you take those numbers and figure them into the equation, they don't equal out to the 4875 number. They go back to the 41,552 number. Or
So he was correcting himself. So he made a wrong motion, then he corrected himself?
No,
No, he was just trying to, for a note of clarity, to specify.
Make it confusing?
Yeah, so he ended up commingling different columns. And I don't, so they sent the spreadsheet, and I know you can't see it, but numbers from different columns got commingled. And that's how the 4875 number was still used there. Thank you, Kate. Perfect. Yeah. And the only thing is I can't point out, Kate. So if you want to point out on, where the 41,521 number is and then the 4875 number.
Can you all see my cursor? Does it show up on your end?
yes,
Okay, so this right here is the number that was used, 40,875,550, and here's the breakout that would result from that number. That number does not include this debt service payment that they added as Schedule C down here. So this is the number that was cited in the motion. Then Councilman Caluro, as his note of clarity, cited a total increase dollar amount, which comes from this row up here, which is 850, 662 for Warren and 396, 177 for Bristol. If that was the intention, was to add those dollars to the bottom line, then this would be the result. It would be 41,521, 972, not 4875, 550. So
Okay.
I think the confusion, he took the dollar increase from this overall calculation at the top, but he did not include this debt calculation, this $646,422 that they include in Schedule C. So this plus this equals this, but these numbers equal this.
Well, if the motion was for a wrong number, Steve, I think you're gonna have to call another meeting.
I don't disagree, Joe. I don't. It's just to get the the two wise men and one wise woman to agree, meaning the attorneys that are giving advice to the different councils and to the committee. Hopefully we get this resolved mañana. But yeah, I will definitely keep you all up to date and posted.
I mean, I get it now.
You're a better man than I. It took me 2 weeks to get it.
Well, it's a mathematical error, and he was in motion when he made the correction. Instead of just saying, I have to give a bottom line, he went on with some explanation other than the bottom line. That's how I read it.
So we have a motion by VP Hanley
I'll
to
second it.
continue this, and we have a second from Councilman Kalenda. All in favor?
I,
Aye.
And
Any
Ms. Mishu
opposed?
is going to make recommendations for the next meeting on the
Yes.
cut.
Yes.
Yes, and Manager Michaud has made, did you send that, or will you be sending that email with the other questions that we had about that may impact the budget, the education portion of the budget to Dr. Bryce?
Yes, I was just waiting for Anthony to complete his review.
Okay,
You don't want to use this time to make a contingent budget?
no, we don't have anything in front of us to even look at, Joe.
I know, but I thought Ms. Mishu made the recommendations. You're going to look at them, you're going to see them. It's going to be no different than.
So
than
that's something I'm working on, and I will have
Oh,
recommendations.
I thought you had it. I'm sorry.
Nope, that'll be something, I mean, I have some general categories, but I'd like to come to you with specific recommendations.
No, I understand.
already.
Motion
It
to-
just may take a little more time than we're scheduled for to make the decision, because these are fairly significant and serious cuts to a budget that is already to the bone. So, we just have to be prepared that if we can't get it done in that hour prior to the next meeting, again, we may have to make another, we can continue it again. I mean, we're not up against a
Right.
time issue here, because we've literally got till the end of June. If obviously we don't want to go there, but I'm just saying, so we should be prepared, just that contingency.
And I will get you my recommendations prior to the meeting so that you have time to think about them and have
Great.
questions and prepared.
Let's hope we don't have to do this, but
I'll make a
Right.
motion, we adjourn?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Aye.
Good night, guys.